It's well known by now that many fans didn't like the ending of the original Mass Effect trilogy. All of the decisions we made and relationships we formed didn't matter in the end. Instead, it all came down to three choices: red, blue, green. For people like me, the green ending was the best. I already did a video about that. But more importantly, maybe this ending was actually what made the most sense for the series as a whole. You see, at the end of Mass Effect 3, the Crucible has finished construction, and Shepard is able to use it to destroy all synthetic life, organic life, or combine us into a new being entirely. Right before the choice, though, we are met with a catalyst, a mirage of a boy Shepard has been seeing throughout the game in his nightmares, that tells us it is an artificial intelligence that controls the Reapers. The catalyst is the mastermind behind the cycles of destruction, and was created by the Leviathans to protect them before it turned against them, as it saw this betrayal as the only way to actually preserve all organic life. The catalyst argues that all organic life eventually makes synthetics, artificial intelligence, in order to improve their lives. But it is through this very process of improvement that these synthetics must eventually become more capable than their creators, which inevitably leads to destruction and chaos, as we have already seen turned proof multiple times in this series. This gets even more intriguing though when we ask the Catalyst about the Crucible. The Mastermind is very knowledgeable about what it is, what it does, and how it works. But when we ask further, we simply are told it's too complicated to delve into for now. For a Mastermind and evil AI, this seems fishy to not give full context, where before we were given absolute certainty on all our answers. And maybe this is for a reason. Because maybe the Crucible wasn't something the organics over multiple cycles created to finally stop the Reapers. In fact, maybe it was actually just another trick from the Catalyst. You see, the Catalyst Prime Directive, the reason it was created in the first place, was to protect organic life at all costs. And as far as we know, this is still the intelligence's main goal today. So what if the plans for the Crucible were actually left by the Catalyst? What if the Catalyst realized that the only way to save organics from their own destruction was to eventually have them join together with synthetics as one? The Crucible isn't our salvation. It's a test. A test to see if organisms over millions of years of cycles of destruction at the hands of the Reapers can finally ascend into something bigger than themselves. It would perfectly explain these cycles from the Reapers. It was all actually a sort of trial to force organics down the path to synthesis, the green ending. Shepard is nothing more than the final conclusion of these cycles, the hero of his time that hopefully, from the Catalyst perspective, is finally ready to make the correct decision, the synthesis ending to join all organic and synthetic life. And it is in this final moment that the Catalyst gives full control back to its creators to make that decision. After all, only if Shepard actually chooses the synthesis ending does it indicate through all the Catalyst's work that organics are finally ready to ascend and remove themselves from the shackles of doom that bind them. It explains the weird dreamlike sequences in the ending, and also explains why no Reapers are directed to stop Shepard at the Catalyst, as there are many flying by at the time. The Catalyst allows this to happen because this was the plan all along. It's planned to do what it was originally created to do: save all organic life at any cost. Piggybacking off the idea of the Catalyst and the Crucible, we actually hear about these beings even earlier on in the story. A small tidbit many fans don't know about. As early as in Mass Effect 1, players can find a codex entry on a planet called Glencory, which is owned by a Volus billionaire named Kuman Shoal. The codex entry explains that Shoal was shown a vision of higher beings made of light on his planet that explained to him that the other lost crypts of beings of light were on the planet and that they were created to protect organic life at all costs against the synthetic machine devils. The reason this entry is so weird is because at first glance it seems to be referring to the same beings that the Catalyst is, the supposed artificial intelligence that was created by the Leviathans that created the Reapers. But if that is the case, why did these beings of light tell Sheol that they are trying to protect us from the machine devils? Could this be further proof that the Catalyst is in fact the good guy of the main story, and that synthesis is the correct ending? Maybe these beings of light, the Catalyst, is in fact ultimately trying to defend humanity against the Reapers, and is merely using them as a tool for our salvation. If that is not the case, then this mystery becomes even weirder, as it would imply that there are more Catalyst-like creatures that are pulling the strings behind the Mass Effect universe at all times, almost like the gods of ancient Greece and Rome. One theory I have as well is that this could potentially have been the original idea for the main story, but later on Bioware reworked the idea for beings of light into the Catalyst ending. Either way, it's cool to see from this theory that some of the other previous ones on this list match up, and how much planning and foresight went into creating this amazing universe, even from just the onset of the first game. The indoctrination theory might actually be the most well-known theory in all of Mass Effect. It originally gained popularity after a YouTuber released his theory video almost a decade after the conclusion of Mass Effect 3. It argues that at some point either in Mass Effect 3, towards the end of the first game, or after Shepard's death in the second, our player character has actually become indoctrinated by the Reaper's powers. This explains why the ending sequence of Mass Effect 3 is so strange. Many players notice that the entire last fight sequence fighting a Reaper, taking on the Elusive Man, and eventually talking to the Catalyst at the Crucible seems very out of place and almost dreamlike. It could be that at this point Shepard has become fully indoctrinated by the Reapers and Catalyst power and is simply imagining things or speaking directly to the Catalyst through his subconscious. We have seen multiple characters throughout the story of Mass Effect that were taken over by the powers of indoctrination, most notably Saren in the first game, but even many side characters as well. Mind control is a key talking point of the Mass Effect franchise, and the indoctrination theory ties perfectly into this. It could fit into the Crucible and Synthesis endings, as it could potentially imply that the Catalyst has started to mind control Shepard into making the correct choice. It could also mean, as the theory originally states, that the Reapers and Catalysts are actually trying to indoctrinate Shepard into choosing something like synthesis instead of destruction. But I buy very little into this, as the Catalyst could have simply sent the Reapers to stop Shepard on the Crucible, as well as a multitude of other reasons, like the destruction ending actually making no sense in the first place. Destroying the Reapers accomplishes nothing, as a future organic civilization would eventually create artificial intelligence that turns against them again and again, as we have already seen repeated in endless cycles. Also, another fun fact is the indoctrination theory could potentially explain the Paragon and Renegade system throughout the series. The reason Shepard is able to influence so many people and events in the universe is because he is in fact indoctrinated by the Reapers, and thus has some of their powers of influence. Even more interestingly, if we take this theory to its limits, it is also possible that Shepard is not being indoctrinated by the Reapers or the Catalysts, but rather by the Leviathans or Thorian instead, as he has had an encounter with both, and we know both have the ability to mind control subjects just like the Reapers. Either way, it seems quite clear that there is a very high likelihood that Shepard's decisions at the end of the Mass Effect trilogy may not actually be his very own. Yet another theory that potentially ties all of these grand theories of Mass Effect together is the dark energy theory. This theory postulates that Tali's loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2 is actually a warning of the real danger in the Milky Way, the one the Reapers and the Catalysts are trying to protect us from. In the mission, it is heavily implied that the dying star Hailstrom was actually so close to going supernova because of the events of dark energy causing it to go to extremely fast heat death. In fact, one of the main writers, Drew Kapaisen at BioWare, and some of his team members who have left BioWare have actually heavily implied that this was originally the plan for the ending of Mass Effect. A reveal that the Reapers were killing civilization every 50,000 years in order to stall and find a way to stop this spread of dark energy from large Mass Effect fields and EZO. If this were in fact true, that would mean the Reapers are truly the good guys of the original trilogy, and that they were simply trying to find a way to save all organic life from their inevitable death at the hands of dark energy swallowing our universe whole. And this brings us to the final theory on my list, and potentially also the most interesting. One that not only ties everything we have talked about together, but also the theory of what the next Mass Effect game will be about. I actually already made a video about this a long time ago, but I want to briefly touch on and elaborate more on this idea. You see, currently we have no idea where the next Mass Effect game is going, but I have a theory that I hope becomes true, because it would tie everything together so perfectly. You see, what if the Catalyst and the Reapers, like we've been speaking about, were the good guys? What if they were truly trying to protect all organic life, as they were originally created to do? What if there was dark energy close to destroying life as we know it? And what if the Reaper cycle was ultimately building towards humanity choosing synthesis and combining with synthetics to become a new and all-powerful being that could solve this issue? And what if, as implied in the Mass Effect Next trailer, the actual decision Shepard chose was destruction, the red ending? In the trailer, we see multiple destroyed mass relays, and even a dead Reaper and derelict Reaper on an icy planet. So what if Shepard made a mistake and chose destruction, thus ruining the plan set forth by the Reapers to save us? This would open up the potential for a new game, where we slowly discovered that Shepard made this grave mistake, our hero, and that our biggest threat all along was this dark energy that was only alluded to in the second game briefly, a plot point that the Mass Effect team, we know for a fact, had originally intended to include. The game could open with us in a galaxy that has been rebuilt after the destruction of all synthetics. Some fringe groups would be outlawed from Alliance space because of work on new AI systems, and there would be multiple new races that have now had the time to develop after the Reapers' failed invasion. The main story could center around a new character, or Shepard Reborn, slowly uncovering this true threat in the galaxy and finding a way to stop it. This could even tie into Andromeda and the Scourge. You see, in Andromeda, there was a strange mythical substance that was taking over entire planets and killing them, called the Scourge, and we never really learn what that actually is. Could it be that the Scourge is really dark energy? Could it be Andromeda was a warning to all of us what the true villain of the series was? This would imply that dark energy was not only potentially dooming the Milky Way, but all galaxies and the entire universe with it. What if the next Mass Effect game told the story of the Milky Way being rebuilt, of new and fantastical stories and races to discover, and of the discovery that Shepard was wrong, that our hero was actually the biggest villain, and that we must now figure out how to stop the Scourge, the dark energy, from killing us all. This journey could take us to the edges of the Milky Way into dark space, where we could potentially find that ark that was lost in Andromeda and never found. It could lead us to finding still alive Reapers drifting derelict in dark space. And it could eventually lead us to finding a solution with the help of our sworn enemies to save not just the Milky Way this time, but the entire galaxy as we know it. Mass Effect is one of my most beloved franchises of all time, and it's easy to see why. The universe is so rich with intrigue and lore, and the characters we meet and moments we have with them will live on with us forever, as well as the many questions that this series leaves us with. I'm excited for the next Mass Effect, not because of next-gen graphics, better gameplay, or a new cast of characters, but because we finally get to dive into this amazingly deep and interesting world that has so many more stories to be told and conspiracies to be had.